It's better if I mute myself. Welcome back. I want to invite Sarah Branch to join me on the virtual stage. Sarah comes to us from Ex Libris, which is one of our silver sponsors. And Sarah's going to spend 10 minutes sharing with us today about the fairly new Esploro product. Welcome, Sarah.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca. All right, thank you so much. We with Ex Libris are thrilled to be here today and to be supporting the Expert Finder Systems Forum. Particularly excited to introduce ourselves. For some of you, this may be a true and genuine introduction to both Ex Libris and Esploro. Ex Libris has actually been in the research support space for a number of years with Pivot, or as it's now branded, Pivot RP. Pivot RP provides the largest, most comprehensive, editorially curated database of funding opportunities, and also includes expert profiles for researchers. Research administrators use Pivot profiles to match researchers at their institutions with opportunities that would be a good fit for them. Pivot itself does some automated matching with those profiles as well. And then users or researchers can use those profiles to identify collaborators or co-PIs who might be relevant to awards they are working on. Those Pivot profiles are public to the Pivot community, to those other Pivot users. Over the past few years, we have extended our research support and solutions with Esploro, which is our research information management solution. We now have 30 customers, and Esploro maximizes research visibility and impact by systematically capturing and managing research output and data, optimizing discovery of research output and profiles, and also leveraging and integrating with both the institutional infrastructure and systems and the existing workflows. Esploro's dedicated discovery portal showcases research assets and those profiles, all of which are actually automatically updated via our smart harvesting workflow. That smart harvesting workflow is actually a technology that was developed by Ex Libris to automatically harvest research outputs that are created by an institution's researchers and then update the relevant systems with that information. Currently, smart harvesting captures publications, including articles, conference proceedings, books and book chapters, even book reviews and reports. And in the future, it will also include data sets, patents, creative works, and more. The current source for our smart harvesting is Ex Libris' Central Discovery Index, also called the CDI. The CDI is our index of over 4 billion records that support our discovery services across the higher ed cloud platform. A couple of important and distinct features of the CDI. One, it's publisher independent, so much of the content in the CDI is provided directly by publishers and also sourced through other repositories. It also represents all disciplines, so STEM, social sciences, humanities, and the creative arts. With Esploro, it is really important to us that we do represent researchers across all disciplines equally. Just a few numbers about the CDI. It has over 750 million journal articles, 730 million books and chapters, over 100 million patents, 9 million data sets, and over 50 million conference proceedings. So it's a really rich pool of data for us to pull from. Smart harvesting itself sends a query out with an institution's affiliated researchers information to the CDI. It returns candidate assets that look like they belong to scholars at your institution. And we have an author matching algorithm that uses machine learning techniques to determine if that candidate record does indeed belong to the researcher. So this goes back to that importance of having the automated updating of those researcher profiles. If that candidate asset does look like it belongs to the researcher, it's added to our research information hub, and then that data is all used to update discovery and profiles. That research information hub is a single comprehensive source of data on researcher activities, projects, and outputs, and on grant information. Leveraging that data, Esploro showcases the scholar profiles and the assets via an SEO-friendly discovery portal. It can track institutional funding information and provide really detailed analytics of interest across campus stakeholders. So those Esploro analytics really support both reporting and data visualization, and it allows for institutions to get insight into their researchers' output as well as to the researchers themselves. The wealth of data in Esploro, combined with the multitude of tools that it offers, really makes it a valuable resource across the institution for multiple stakeholders. It can be leveraged both as an expert finder system to assess university rankings, to feed other institutional systems. The data here is completely open, so it can feed other institutional systems like a faculty activity reporting system, provide data for national assessment, support the identification and fostering of industry relationships, and support open access policies. Here we're taking just a brief look at the showcasing and the researcher profiles. What you're looking at here is an example from Southern Cross University in Australia. You can see that the profiles employ a very modern, clean, and intuitive user interface, creating a positive experience both for viewers and for researchers themselves. And as I'd mentioned, those profiles are automatically updated as data in the Research Information Hub is updated via either smart harvesting or other manual deposit processes. The automatic updating of those profiles ensures that they consistently reflect researchers' current outputs, projects, and funding, and captures accurately their current areas of research expertise, which we know can change over time. Altogether, Esploro and Exlibris, the difference that we bring here is we are a SaaS company, which means it eliminates the need for that on-site dedicated servers, local support, infrastructure upgrades, and those additional software licenses. We have a great team that supports the migration of data from current systems. We ensure that we have standards compliant data security and that users really experience very little downtime. Both Esploro and Pivot benefit from monthly development updates. It's also, as I mentioned, very open. We don't consider any of the data in Esploro proprietary. It really belongs to the institution and the user. So Esploro integrates with other services in the academic ecosystem through open APIs, allowing institutions to automatically enrich their systems with data from Esploro and from those researcher profiles, and enriching things like faculty assessment reviews. I've already talked about the CDI, but just again emphasizing the access that we have to this index of billions of records, the robust analytics that can be provided at the level of researchers at departments or other academic units, and also those broader institutional metrics. And of course, Exlibris offers our research suite. So not only do we have Esploro, but we have Pivot and Research Professional, and also ProQuest theses and dissertations. So strong integrations across all of these systems, as well as being part of our higher ed cloud platform. So customers who may also be using something like Exlibris's Alma as their library management system can really leverage that infrastructure to support the implementation and administration of Esploro as well. So really a very strong product with rich data, interoperable, really supporting multiple stakeholders and goals across an institution. I did want to mention just briefly that a couple of my wonderful colleagues are also going to be part of presentations throughout the rest of the EFS conference here. So Jessica Clemens, one of our account executives, is on a presentation with Tracy Elliott from Florida Gulf Coast University and Danuta Niteka from Drexel University on March 4th. And then Nadab Drone, our VP of Research Solutions, is participating in the Q&A on March 18th. And that is Exlibris and Esploro. It's nice to meet you, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to, because we're right at perfect timing, 10 after, I'm going to invite Karin Scarpinato from Texas, Texas, I have Texas in the brain, from Florida Atlantic University to join me on the platform. And she's going to be sharing about Florida Atlantic University's efforts to help faculty meet
Thank you.
around their ideas and not just their existing expertise. So take it away, Karin. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm going to pivot us a little bit here. And our tool is a homegrown tool that was developed at FAU, at Florida Atlantic University. And it's not as well developed as the ones that you've just seen. It also is somewhat different, as the primary goal is not an expertise database, even though that it has it in it. So in the first few slides, I'm going to go over why we decided to approach some of the same difficulties and challenges that we're facing slightly different. So as you've already seen from some of our other presenters, your typical expertise database, and I just randomly picked some universities that have expertise databases online. They look something like this, where you have the name, the title, the affiliation, and then usually some keywords, maybe a little write-up on what these individuals are doing. And our office always was find it very difficult to support research collaborations based on these expertise databases. And that's where we started out, was to try and figure out how can we do this better. If I go into any of these expertise databases, yes, I can find what the individual's general research expertise is. I usually use myself as an example. I'm by training a cancer biologist, and the specialty is in DNA repair. So I would probably put something like DNA repair, genetics, something like that as keywords on it, which is great, but that would not give you any idea on what I'm currently would be working on. So what is it that you are working on right now? So from our experience, the typical expertise database works well if you're looking for a service, or if you, it was mentioned earlier, if you want to put a committee together and you need somebody with a general expertise in a certain area, works great for that. But when I'm, as a research administrator here, want to put an interdisciplinary team together, that's more difficult, where the expertise databases don't really tell you what you're working on right now. It's primarily focused on what you've done in the past. So what is it you are working on right now? And am I interested in collaborating on your project? And that's really where we started out with. So what we looked at is really this dilemma that and we did a lot of looking around before we decided to really go and develop our own tool, because it's very time intensive and also money intensive, but we couldn't really find anything commercially, and that's been a few years ago now, that would really fulfill our needs. So what we found, that commercial expertise networks are a bit of like top down, and to some extent they're also static. So from our perspective, the use of the product is somewhat limited. They're kind of waiting it there to be used. You actually have to have, if you have faculty interested in finding a collaborator, the faculty would actively have to spend their time to look for something and somebody. And while they occasionally may be doing this, and even if you're suggesting potential collaborators based on your network analyses and all this, they still have to go through the individuals, and all they will find is what the other faculty, the potential collaborators, have previously worked on, not necessarily what they're currently interested in and currently working on. And in our expertise, in our experience, faculty do not typically look for these type of experts. They're looking more for projects that they might be interested in collaborating. The other difficulties that we always found with expertise networks, and several of the other universities I worked at previously, we had subscribed to some of them. The maintaining of the information was difficult, and also the completeness of the information was very difficult. We had so many faculty that were upset because some publication or some grant or some other award or something that they had obtained, that they found very important to show, didn't show up because any of these databases always just have a limited data set that they're querying. So this is where we started. So we wanted to pursue team-based funding opportunities. We wanted to also engage external partners with whom we could collaborate. And we wanted to find collaborators for our faculty who hadn't previously done or had not recently done any research, and wanted to have a tool with which we could actually do that in addition to just forging general collaborations between individuals who might have an interest in working with each other. So what we decided on doing eventually, after we looked around for a little while, is create our own system, our own platform. We tried to have more of a bottom-up approach that is centered around projects rather than the expertise of people. That platform now has 2 modules. I'm primarily going to talk about the Meet Sparks platform, which is that collaboration tool. We now also have a second module. It's called Fund Sparks. I only going to very briefly mention that because it's not really related to expert finder systems. But the Meet Sparks platform is soft launched here at FAU now, and it's really used to do matchmaking. We always call it researchmatch.com for faculty and faculty interactions, but also for faculty and student interactions. And then the Fund Sparks is the project management tool that's specific to grant application that I very briefly going to mention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go over, these are actually screenshots. This is not the live tool, but go over some of the screenshots and show you how this actually looks like. So in the Meet Sparks, you have these tiles. And in these tiles, you have projects. So you can tag your project as you're submitting it with certain keywords, and that determines in which tile this goes. And these are just some examples here that I pulled up that are actually relatively old at this point. So this is what you get when you go to our home page. If you click on one of these tiles, you get a list of projects that have been submitted, and the authors have an option of putting a picture in it. You can see that none of these have pictures in it, unfortunately. And on the right side here, you can see how to submit a project. It's fairly straightforward. And you can also query the submitted project if you want to filter it down through additional keywords. You can certainly do that here. And then if you click on one particular project, this is the kind of information that you're getting. So you see, of course, at this point, it's Florida Atlantic University, the department, who the author is, how to connect with that person. And then there is a description, it's like a summary there that describes a project. And this is a project. It's not a general description of the general research interests of the faculty. It is actually a project that he or she is looking to have collaborators on or have a student work on. So these are not your general descriptions of, oh, I'm a cancer biologist and my specialty is DNA repair, and particularly MSH2 and mismatch repair and so on. This is like, okay, I would like for you to work with me on identifying partners of MSH2 and mismatch repair, and this is what I'm going to do in that. So if you're interested, as you're reading through this, if you're interested in collaborating, there's a I want to collaborate button, and you can provide your, and I'm showing you that screen in a minute here. You can provide your information, get in touch with the author of this. So this is what happens if you click on that I want to collaborate. Again, it gives you a little write-up. Great, you want to collaborate. Your motivation, that's where you tell the owner of that project why you want to collaborate with them. Let's say I'm a biostatistician. Maybe, you're thinking this is something that you can, the project is something you could contribute to. And then you basically send your application in. So I'm interested in this project because I have a background in something, and my current project centers around something else, and it might be a good fit for what you're doing. So then you send your application. Now, since we're talking about expertise databases here, of course, as part of this, this whole project-based tool, there is also an underlying expertise database, if you like. So this is an example of that expertise database that we have. Again, it's just a name, it's your affiliation, your contact information, and then a general description of what you're interested in. The platform does allow for you to submit a resume, and you actually have to have an active profile and a resume submitted in order to indicate that you want to collaborate with somebody. So the system will not allow you to collaborate or indicate that you want to collaborate with anybody unless you have submitted a resume. And this is, on a higher up level, how the expertise database looks like. We have little icons depending on whether somebody's a student, a faculty, or a staff member, and there's a very simple query search there where you can search our expertise database. There is, of course, a back end to this whole thing that is still under development and that we're working on, but you can a very simple, analysis on how many users you have, how many proposals and projects have been submitted, how many new submissions there are. All of these new submissions go through our central office, so they have to be approved through us. That's just a kind of like a quality control, so we don't get any random weird submissions from somebody. Right now, this tool is behind our firewall, so even if I gave you the URL, you couldn't access this unless I give you access to it. And we are expanding this back, and we want to use that more for data analytics and see if we can actually do some predictions through that. And here's just another display on the type of data that you currently can get. So this is on the left side, it's user distribution by departments. You can see, what are the high users of this platform. And on the right side, it's the user distribution by tag. The one thing that I didn't go into is that whenever you submit a project, you're tagging yourself and you're tagging your project. So in my case, it would be something like DNA repair, cancer, and so on. You can put a number of different tags on, and that also gives you suggestions. There's another tool that gives you suggestions where other users who have submitted projects with the same tags, similar tags, it gives you the suggestion of other users who have similar tags, and then it makes the same suggestion that we heard from other presenters earlier, that they might be worth looking into. Only in this case, you're looking at projects, not at the people. So there is another project that's saying cancer. There's another project that was submitted in DNA repair, so it would alert me to that effect, and I could look at it and see if there's any potential for collaboration there. We also have a funding database. That one is currently manual, that we're trying to build up and make it more automated. That also tags you, let's say a new funding opportunity comes up and is put into the system in cancer. Again, the tags connect everything, and that's what the right side shows, the number of tags in the different areas. All right, this is just very briefly, this is the second module that we're having, which is called FundSparks. Again, that's the project management tool for grant application, with the idea that once you have your team, well, that team ideally, at least from a research administrator standpoint, should look for funding. And, so that would be the next step, getting the team towards funding and providing a platform where all components of a grant can meet, basically, and you can assign pieces to individual contributors to the grant. All right, so the benefits that we've seen through our homegrown tool here is that it's a bottom-up approach. It allows faculty to see projects that are going on around campus, and also projects that they may not ever otherwise not ever hear about, because if an engineer sits in their office or their environment there, they don't necessarily hear what's going on in graphic design or in medicine or wherever else they might have a potential collaborator. So this exposes them to projects that they otherwise would not hear about. We also, a little unexpectedly, this tool has really taken off with our students. As you may know, may be aware, students are often a bit timid on connecting with faculty around, to ask for research opportunities or ask for working with a faculty, especially if they have not met that faculty before. So this tool gives the students a way out, if you like, to look over projects and decide up front, is this, does this faculty do anything that I'm interested in, currently doing something that I'm interested in, and not just telling me, okay, this faculty works on AI. Well, okay, I have an interest in AI, but does the faculty really work on a project I'm interested in? And what are the projects that are even available to me I'm working on? So for our students, this has been a really nice tool. So again, it's an interdisciplinary team building tool around projects that provide some funding opportunities, and then we have the project management tool for the grant applications. The other nice addition that we currently are working on is we have a number of external collaborators, meaning we have corporate partners, we have hospitals we're working with, we have international universities who we're working with, those that are physically not here on site. And for that, this tool has been extremely important and very very good in terms of getting the collaborators or getting potential collaborators connected up front, through virtually, basically. And, and right now we're in a pandemic where even if you're on site, you may not be on campus. So to get collaborators connected, this virtual tool has been quite useful. All right, with that, I'm going to end my presentation.
Great. Thanks. A number of questions coming in. The first one was actually for me, but it got an upvote, so I'm going to take it first. How is the engagement from faculty? Are you getting good faculty buy-in? And are there any super successful stories you'd like to share?
So the faculty, that's always the trickiest part, I gotta tell you. And right now we have it only soft launch. So we're actually in the next month or two we're fully marketing it. Faculty, actually, we have, I think, about 800 or so faculty right now signed up, and I don't remember exactly how many we are. The exact number I can't tell you right now, but it's been a good number. But that really the interactions with the students and getting students to work on your project has really helped with that, I must say. So, while originally we thought this is just going to be for faculty interactions, the faculty-student interactions actually really have taken this, and taken this to the next level. And the faculty are really appreciative for that. And our Office for Undergraduate Research and Creative Inquiry is using this tool actively for that purpose.
Okay, so another question that we got was related to IP issues. Have there been any issues with the IP stage on these projects?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's actually why we're having it behind a firewall right now. So you couldn't see the project even if I gave you the URL right now, and that's why we put it behind a firewall. What we're doing with our external collaborators that I mentioned in the last slide is we were vetting them basically, and they can choose whether they get access, and we give them access to all of the projects, or they will just see the project that are specific to, let's say, the corporation that we're working with or the international university that we're working with. So that option is there, so they can choose whether or not, and our faculty can choose whether or not everybody will see it or just a certain subgroup. And when you're submitting your project, there's a checkbox where you basically choose that.
Are you finding, what are most people doing? I'm curious.
They are pretty open, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I figured that for it to really work.
It's not publicly available, publicly meaning to everybody available. It's still like a relatively limited group. It's only available to those external partners that we added manually, basically, and after vetting, and then internally to FAU. So that has not been a huge issue, but we had a lot of discussions on that.
Okay. And then to clarify, someone asked, do only faculty with funded projects appear in your system?
No, anybody.
These are ideas.
Yes, these are ideas. These are just ideas. This is absolutely not just funded projects. We would like for them to go after funding after they work on these projects, but these are just ideas. Yes.
Okay. Then we had another question about what's your staffing. I think that this is always the question: is how many developers do you have, or how much does a system like this cost?
I only have one developer.
Okay.
So what we did, and that's a really good question. We looked around a lot on what we actually were doing. Being a university, I don't have unlimited funds for this. There are other things that I need to fund. So we ended up hiring a student actually here on site, and that student ends up having an offshore out of the country company that is sort of like the developing company behind the student. So the student owns an international company. Now the student has moved on, or is only available for consultation now, but the company is still working with us. So we directly now work with the company, and that company I think has like 3 or 4 folks working on them.
Okay. So a few more questions here. Are all of the submissions to collaborate vetted by your office?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then another question from Jan Franzen says, how do external collaborators engage since it's behind a firewall?
And that's what I'm saying. So let's say you're at FIU. So your email would have a handle fiu.edu. So we would allow anybody with fiu.edu to come onto the platform. Now, again, that can be as your own little tile, and you only will see a project in that own little tile. Or if vetted through the whole university, we allow it. Probably not in this case. You would get access to all of the projects, but for the most, it's just in your own little tile, and you only get access to those projects that are submitted as like collaboration with FIU or something like that.
Okay. All right. And then a question from Don at Colorado. He says, it seems as if your tools pull data from your faculty affairs system. I'm assuming that's HR. And then someone else is asking about student information system, grants, contracts. You can add anything else in there. Can you clarify what your data sources are?
So we actually don't, it's a completely bottom up. So the researchers have to put their project in themselves. And then if I wanted to go in and I can browse through the projects, but if I want to say, okay, I want to collaborate with you, I have to upload my own resume. Basically, it's completely driven by the researchers. So we don't do any data. Now for the funding opportunities, that's a little bit trickier. Right now that's manual, and we have an Office for Research Development who are manually providing those funding opportunities that go in there, and we're trying to automate that. That's a larger project. This is a relatively young tool. We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. All right. I don't not seeing any other questions, and we're just right at 12:34. So thank you. Very interesting presentation. I want to invite Blair Monroe now to join me up here on the virtual stage. Blair is from Florida State University. He works with the Florida ExpertNet system, and he has developed a subsite specifically to support COVID expertise and research. And Blair, I invite you to start your presentation now. Thanks.
Thank you. Let me get the right screen here. All right. So yeah, my name is Blair Monroe. I'm the Assistant Director at the Center for Information Management and Educational Services here at Florida State University. We're the folks that run Florida ExpertNet. Florida ExpertNet was established back in 1999. We operate the system in conjunction with the Florida Board of Governors. It's a web-based portal that collects and makes available for public searching information about externally funded researchers and their projects, and in addition, technology licensing opportunities from 12 of Florida's public and private universities. Our purpose is to facilitate research collaboration across universities and to support the state's economic development aims. Early last year, with the advent of COVID-19, the pandemic, we decided that the ExpertNet portal needed to provide a way to help channel users of the portal towards resources and expertise that were specifically oriented towards addressing the growing efforts to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. The idea was, in a sense, to cut out that first couple of layers of having to come to ExpertNet and search for resources and expertise in that area by providing them a specific page they could go straight to and find a kind of pre-curated, lightly curated set of data pulled from the existing ExpertNet data and additional locations, all packaged up into one location. The eventual site that we put together, and this is a demo of the actual site here on the screen, includes a variety of data across the different data sources that we have within Florida ExpertNet and a few other pieces of information we pulled in. It provides a focus on experts, provides access points to information about related projects, various organizations, centers, departments, colleges across the state, highlights activity going on primarily on Twitter, but across various locations as well. The experts page itself, it enables you to drill down and get further information about experts throughout the system that are in one way or another potentially related or of use research-wise in the COVID-19 arena. The way we put this site together kind of involved three different sets of activities. The first was providing access to data that we already had. The second was allowing an opportunity for the experts within Florida ExpertNet to further augment their profiles with additional information about how their research is related to COVID-19. And then, of course, providing a marketing campaign to raise awareness of this special topic page. Working with the existing data in ExpertNet, we analyzed the information that we had across the breadth of our database, looking for the best way to tag or filter down to experts, projects, and so on that would be of interest for somebody looking for COVID-19 related researchers or research or technologies. And a lot of that came down to using a variety of keyword filters across some specific fields that we already tracked. One of the big ones that we ended up using to help narrow the list of people involved, the experts, were the departments that they were involved in, the project titles that for their funded projects, and their various keyword and research term fields. And as you can see here, a number of the fields or terms that we used were related to biomedical, molecular pharmacology, COVID, coronavirus, obviously, epidemiology. And that helped us to narrow down the many expert records and funded project records that we have in ExpertNet to being a more focused set that would be of interest on the special topic page. That, however, does not get everybody that might be involved in research associated with COVID-19 or that are possibly interested in being involved in research related to COVID-19. So to capture that and to provide the experts a way to provide more information about their involvement or interest in being involved, we added to the standard ExpertNet profile a page that allowed them to volunteer additional information to discuss their research interests in relation to COVID-19, what their background is, how they could help collaborators, what sort of assistance they might be looking for. And then, of course, provide any additional information they wanted to sell themselves, however they wanted to approach that. This data, once saved into the Florida ExpertNet system, not only automatically made them show up as an expert on the COVID-19 special topic page if they hadn't gotten collected by any of the other filters that were involved, it also causes what we called a COVID-19 research ready badge to appear on their profile and search results pages in the rest of Florida ExpertNet. And the final branch of what we did working with this site was marketing it. In order to improve awareness that the page existed and what sort of resources were there, we did a number of email-based marketing campaigns, different sorts of messages targeted towards different aspects of the site, either the COVID-19 special topics page itself or the research ready addition to profiles. And then those emails were sent to not only the experts within ExpertNet itself, but other contact lists that we maintain as a part of operating Florida ExpertNet. And that is the end of my presentation. A little bit on the short side, but anybody have any questions?
Great. Thanks. Anybody have any questions here for Blair? There weren't any in the chat yet. Yeah. So I guess a general question I always have for folks is how are you how, what kind of usage is this getting from users in the community? And I guess a general question is how do you measure that?
Well, we did use Google Analytics on this site, so we've got some numbers related to it, and we could very easily see when we looked at those numbers a pickup of use of the site when it went live and in response to various waves of those emails that went out. The exact numbers I don't actually have on hand.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're
Yeah, and so then I guess in general, you're using the Google Analytics to sort of assess any, sort of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I think while I wait for any other sort of questions to come in, I want to invite all of our speakers today to join us up here on the virtual stage. And that way we can field, we actually have a little extra time because Blair got done early, a little bit earlier, to see if we can sort of engage. And you can join me on the stage just by turning your camera and microphone on. Great. All right. And is Bruce still with us? Because the first question I have actually that I can see from the chat, and folks, it's oh wait a minute. Here's one question actually. I'm going to get this one's for Blair. Is how long do you plan for the life of this database? And that's from Kim at FuseHub.
We haven't talked about it in great specificity as far as how long we're going to keep this up and running, but I imagine we will probably do so at least as long as a lot of people aren't working at their homes, as long as it maintains kind of that high level of importance around the state and at the universities.
Okay, great. Thanks. So then one of the other questions we didn't get to yet, this is for Anne and for Bruce. And that was, can you share information about any Vivo institutions with oh, wait a minute, we already addressed this with the active data set feeds. Sorry, we already did talk about that. Sorry, I missed that. Yep, never mind. So then the other two questions actually that had come through already were for Sarah at Ex Libris. And one of the questions that came from Brian at Florida International was really about how, about the smart harvesting and about how, can you tell us a little bit more basically about how the name disambiguation works? Are you working with ORCID? Are you working with Scopus IDs?
Yeah.
Yeah, that question.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the algorithm in smart harvesting uses names, including preferred names and name variants, as well as other general features like country, institution, and discipline. Right now, we use the researcher identifiers like ORCID and Scopus on the author matching, so matching the assets to the authors. The challenge there is that you have to have that researcher identifier in the metadata for the research asset, and a lot of the assets don't have that. So we use it when we can. That being said, by the end of this year, we will have bidirectional integration with ORCID, so we will be able to update the Esploro information and profiles directly from ORCID profiles, and vice versa, update ORCID profiles with the information directly from Esploro.
Okay, great, thank you. And then a second question for you is from Jan Franzen at the University of Minnesota, asking if publication metadata, sort of that can be imported into the profiles in the CDI, subject to other institutional subscriptions like Web of Science or Scopus or something like that.
Right, it is not. So the publication data, the metadata that's in the CDI is not based on those individual license agreements or the subscription agreements that individual institutions have. So through that smart harvesting, all of those billions of records, all of that metadata that is in the CDI is available to all institutions through that smart harvesting capture process. I will just mention that Esploro can also function as a institutional repository. And if that's the case where it's also being used as the institutional repository, then when somebody is actually looking at that citation information, the linking out to sources can be based on what the institution has subscriptions to. So that's where those institutional subscriptions would come in terms of actually accessing those assets from the discovery system.
Okay, and I was going to also ask you one more question, Sarah. Similar to, I think, questions that Anne and others got, are there institutions or links, and I also invite you to put this in the chat. This is true actually for Vivo and for RNS as well, are there sample institutions that are really robust that people can take a look at?
Yeah.
So that they can see the full profiles?
Yeah, absolutely. So Southern Cross and another institution in Australia are both live and fairly robust with their profiles. We can put the links to that in the chat as well. We have 30 subscribers altogether. 20 of them are live in various forms, but those are the two with the strongest live profiles at this time. So we will absolutely share those links.
Okay. Oh, and here is a couple more. Here's a question for Blair. How easily would it be for you to create this type of page on other high priority topics?
Actually, it wouldn't be that hard to do. The way we built it is fairly modular on the back end. It would primarily be a matter of determining what those filters would be and the keywords, and then modifying the queries that are already in place, copy of them over, modify those queries, do any sort of graphics revisions we wanted to do, and it would be up and running.
Okay. Here's a question I think that's relevant to almost everybody here in this call is how do you measure the value to each persona or user stakeholder maybe who might use your system? Because Google Analytics, I think we all know there are limitations to what it can tell us. But how do you make your case for continuing to fund what you're doing through metrics and I'll add maybe through storytelling. So I don't know if Griffin or Anne or Karin, you have comments on that. Just unmute yourself to share.
On our end, at the moment, it's more anecdotal, and it's really the number of projects that are being submitted and the number of users that we have. The main success stories that we have right now are faculty and students that are coming together. So that's measured by our Office for Undergraduate Research and Creative Inquiry. And that's really just, supporting our students. So that by itself, it makes nice success stories, honestly. The faculty interactions are primarily actually where we see the successes are more with external collaborators. And that's where we find real value in it, because it's difficult if you have a a collaborator in Israel, right, to get in touch with them easily. You have email and all that, but if you have the project information all in one place, that seems to be very useful. So just the connections in this case would be our measure for that.
And then, go ahead.
One thing that makes measuring the impact of these tools complicated is that the data could be repurposed in other applications. So we have a certain number of users who come directly to our profile site, but then there are APIs and profiles that allow the data and the search capabilities to be embedded into other websites. So at Harvard, at least, there are multiple hospitals and departments that have views of profiles within their own local website. And we don't get data about how many views those pages are seen. We just know how often the sites are pulling from our APIs. So the actual impact is going to be much greater than you get by just measuring your local site if you make those APIs available to people. A lot of what we get are these stories from people that they let us know that they got a large grant that has 20 different PIs on it because they were able to either get some kind of visualization out of profiles, or they were able to find the collaborators from the software.
Yeah, I would just echo that. That it's very difficult to quantify, and of course there are usage measures, like looking at who's coming into the sites and things like that. But I'll agree with Griffin that from what we've seen with Vivo, it's mainly anecdotal, and you have these examples. Like I know Bruce, I'll speak for him a little bit. I know he often talks about at Texas A&M being able to get a really large grant. I think it was NIH, because they were able to demonstrate their collaboration and their network because they had the data ready to go in vivo, right? So of course, it kind of pays for itself in that sense with whatever, time and effort you're putting into it. If you can show that, you got that grant. But it is hard to solicit. I reckon it's hard to solicit those examples because, not everyone has to tell you what happens, right? I mean, you don't know. It kind of has a life of its own. So I think it's something that, everyone's trying to get a better handle on kind of bringing together.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. I think we are sort of at the end of our questions. So I think, Kim, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up just a little bit early today. I'm not sure anybody will mind being able to now downshift into small groups and as we conclude. I'll just a note that we will stay here with the instance of